I can't get this one reporter's question out of my mind about the Tepe murders.
Neighbors had said that they had seen McKee in the neighborhood and in front of the Tepe home days before the homicide. Can you confirm that?
At this time, we're unable to talk about specific information, but again, when we get additional information, we'll be more happy to share it to the public.
So, neighbors said they had seen Michael David McKee in the neighborhood and in front of the Tepe home in the days leading up to the horrible homicides. Now, of course, police officials would not comment on that reporter's question, but I am trusting that local boots-on-the-ground reporter knew what he was talking about. Obviously, they're going around in Columbus, Ohio, interviewing the neighbors of Monique Tepe and Spencer Tepe, unfortunately lost their lives so violently on December 30th. And now we're getting so much more information day by day about what may have happened, what they suffered. Well, the grand jury has just indicted McKee. There's several charges. There's mention of a silencer or sound suppressor, as it were. Perhaps that is what he used. He was hit with 5 charges, and we are waiting for his Ohio appearance. Forgive me if I sound weird or look even weirder because I'm healing. I've been under the weather, and now I'm pounding the vitamin C yesterday, I think it was, and I'm feeling better. Praise God, I'm trying to get through this. I keep thinking of that quote over and over again. Now, that reporter is probably correct. Now, there was another reporter who mentioned McKee was allegedly married after Monique to some person. He had a second wife, is how the reporter put it. I think she was wrong. I think she's mixing up Michael D. McKee with a different Michael D. McKee who shows up in the Ohio court system who was from Whitehall. So I've seen people mix them up.
I know this is an ongoing investigation. I don't know if you can say this, but obviously they were divorced. Are you able to say anything about their relationship after that divorce? It was in 2017. Were they civil? I know he had a second wife as well.
Again, the investigation is still ongoing. Just understand, we're still collecting information. We're still going through a lot of evidence, and there's just some things that we can't speak to right now.
However, as far as that reporter talking about neighbors, what neighbors have reported to him seeing McKee in the neighborhood, I believe that gives us plenty of clues about how Michael McKee plotted and stalked and planned out this crime in the days prior to the murders. Boldly is my belief. First of all, I believe Michael David McKee was pretty bold to be spotted in front of the Tepe home. That's one of the things that caught my ear. Wait a minute, was he standing out front? Was he in a car? So he was not just seen allegedly around the neighborhood. Maybe he was in the alleyways, but he was also seen in front of their house. So was he just standing there just boldly or in a car long enough for neighbors to recognize, maybe that guy looks out of place, or later realize, oh, this is the same guy we saw in that surveillance video in the alleyway, and eventually, oh, the guy who showed up in court after his arrest for the murders, wow, that looks like the same guy. Now, if you're a homebody like me with amazing powers of observation, like Pink Floyd sang, you know it when someone unfamiliar is kind of lurking around your neighborhood, and even perhaps a busy neighborhood like 4th Street. It's pretty busy there in Columbus, where Monique and Spencer lived, near OSU campus. Even though it's a busy neighborhood, neighbors apparently noticed, wait a minute, that guy was hanging around. For example, if you're home all the time, you notice, oh, there's the mailman showing up around whatever time he shows up. Oh, there's so-and-so neighbor walking their dog. You sort of see the same people day in and day out. But some tall guys you've never really seen before, they might catch your eye. So that's why I believe this report that the neighbors are saying, wait a minute, we saw that dude. My big question is, did Monique see McKee watching her house at all? Did she see him in front of the house before the murders? I am specifically wondering if Monique saw her ex-husband, Michael McKee, hanging around in front of their house at all, because she was likely home more during that time. Even though it was the holidays, obviously, Spencer, her husband, the dentist, was still going to work. That's why when he didn't show up on December 30th, there were those flurry of calls from his coworkers saying, hey, he's not here. Now, whether or not Monique and Spencer noticed McKee hanging around, it seems as though they didn't tell police or make a report if they did witness him. Maybe it's something, if they saw him at all, it's something they thought they could handle. And what I gather from any tidbits of information we got from that recent press conference, there were no reports received from that 4th Avenue home regarding McKee prior to the murders. That's the way I understood the questions being answered, rare questions being answered, though they were. We got a few tidbits. And I would understand it, believe me, if Monique or Spencer didn't make a report. Sometimes with a stalker, you don't want to rile them up by, oh, let me call the police on you, or let me get a restraining order against you. Unfortunately, I'm not saying whether you should or shouldn't. What I'm saying is sometimes that can rile people up even more. Second of all, the thing that sticks in my mind about that reporter's question is he's saying neighbors saw McKee not only in front of the house or around the neighborhood, he says days before the homicides. So that grabbed my attention. He said, okay, days? Was McKee really in town and in that neighborhood? He didn't just say, oh, they saw him in the hours before the crime. He asked police, okay, neighbors said they saw him days before. So if McKee was definitely hanging around the Tepe neighborhood and around their home for days, that would have been sort of like a reconnaissance mission for him. Not that McKee was ever in the military that I could find, but it would have helped him figure out how to enter their home, perhaps. A reconnaissance mission is a military or intelligence operation. I had to look it up. I kept wanting to say recognizance, of your own recognizance. I'm so used to court stuff. I'm thinking a reconnaissance mission. When you're gathering information about your enemy. And to McKee, in his mind, I guess, Spencer and Monique must have somehow become enemies number 1 and 2 in his mind. So you go on this mission, you check out the terrain, the weather, potential threats. You observe all around. Using all these methods you can to understand your enemy's position. You're understanding your enemy's position, their strengths, their weaknesses before you carry out this larger operation. Is that where all the premeditation comes into play on McKee's recent charges? Not only if he were headed straight from the Chicago area to Columbus, it would have given him 7 hours worth of time to say, I shouldn't do this. But also, if it were true he was in the area days before, that would play into his premeditation. Did he know what he was about to do? Was he working up the nerve and determining the perfect time and the perfect way to get into that McKee home? Perfect time when the kids would be asleep, when Monique and Spencer wouldn't have any visitors over or family over. Did he have binoculars? How deep did it go? How much was he able to observe about their routine, perhaps in secret, in the days prior to the murders? Did he notice, oh, Monique, my ex-wife, she's not taking her 4-year-old daughter to preschool. I see they're on Christmas break now, or what have you during that holiday time. Did he notice, oh, Spencer's still going off to work at whatever time. I see Spencer waking up at 5 a.m. or whatever time he left the house normally. And Monique is alone with the kids during these hours. This is the time Spencer normally comes home, or Monique goes to the grocery store, or what have you. This is the time their friends might come visit, or family, and now everyone's gone. And was he there in the still of the night, previous nights, deciding, oh, the 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. witching hour, oh, that's the perfect time for me to strike my victims. Not many people are on the streets, or not many people are in that alleyway, or let me see which cameras are where. And if I walk here and park my car here and walk that way, I can get into the home. So how did he bypass their Simply Safe digital security system? That's what allegedly they had, a Simply Safe. I'm not sure on that. I'm just going by what I'm Googling. Recent reports into the deaths of Dr. Spencer Tepe and Monique Tepe. They're claiming this couple had a Simply Safe security system involved. They're claiming this couple had a Simply Safe security system. People have seen a lot of security systems, around their house, their Ring doorbell camera, all this stuff. They took measures to protect themselves, prepare. I don't know if the Tepes owned any weapons themselves. Even if they did, this is why plenty of people who want to strike out at vulnerable people, they choose hours where they believe they're asleep, where they are in a weakened state, not really knowing what's going on, perhaps startled out of their sleep. Maybe they were celebrating. I mean, it was the night before New Year's Eve. Did McKee say, oh, I better not do this on New Year's Eve, they'll have a bunch of people over there. I know I'll strike December 30th when no one's expecting me to be there. Did he notice them drinking any alcohol? Did he know, this is just me pontificating, speculating. I have no idea what they were doing. But was he peeking through the windows like, oh, they're drinking, they'll be pretty, in a deep sleep, and I'll get in there in the middle of the night and really catch them when all their defenses are down? Now we know police have told us there was no sign of forced entry.
You said there were no signs of forced entry. Are you able to say any more about how we got into the house?
Unfortunately, we're not able to talk about that at this moment.
So just because there was no visible sign of forced entry doesn't mean McKee somehow forced himself in, of course, but not in a way where it's like, let me shatter the window or let me kick in the door. Perhaps somehow he learned to hack their Simply Safe system. From what I hear, there are plenty of YouTube videos out there. He shows people, look, this is how easily some of these digital code systems can be hacked. So if anything, I didn't even watch it. I'm not going to get into how to do it because I don't even know how. I think they're devices people get or whatever. Not that I want to teach any criminals how to get into a home. What this video can represent is a learning lesson for anyone who's really dependent on, my Simply Safe system will keep me protected. Well, I think you better go watch some of those lock-picking lawyer videos, because apparently people putting their faith in some kind of digital code might have too much faith in that to keep thieves, burglars out of their homes. So he might not have even done that at all. Some people theorizing, did he guess a code based on knowing Monique and what she might have used? I think that's less likely, but of course it's possible. Did he somehow oversee someone putting in the code? Sure, anything's possible. To me, that's more unlikely. Did he bypass the system, or did he somehow sneak and determine, this basement window can be easily breached or lifted? Was there an unlocked window or an unlocked door? We'll find out eventually. I mean, the case is currently being, of course, still investigated. We can't get a ton of evidence. They wouldn't even give me his arrest videos. He was arrested by ATF. I didn't know that till we found that out. And we're still waiting for him to get back to Ohio, but part of me thinks he's probably already back. I don't know. Today is Saturday, January 17th, as I film this. Monday is MLK Day. I still feel like they're going to sneak him back when no one knows. But let's talk about why and how Monique left McKee and why, in my mind, he came home to her. So we're hearing more from people who knew McKee. This one woman who says she's an ex-girlfriend of McKee's, and it sheds more light on how shallow he was.
Okay, so crazy story time. So last Sunday, I get a text message from an old coworker that linked this article about a Michael David McKee, and my heart dropped because that's one of my ex-boyfriends, which is pretty insane. I was floored. So just wanted to hop on and talk a little bit about the whole situation. So I dated him around the end of 2017 through a good chunk of 2018, I think. So what I remember of him is he was just like a nice guy. Like, he was quiet, introverted, which there's nothing wrong with that. He was a general surgery resident at the time where I was doing my residency as well. And he was really nice. Like, there was no issues with him. He was always kind and respectful with me. I've been over his house. It's pretty crazy that you never know someone. But long story short, he did tell me a little bit about his divorce at the time. So, and again, I want to preface this with, this is his side of the story and what he spoke to me. This is not truth. This is obviously very biased. But what he told me was that one day he came home from residency and that Monique had vanished. Like, she took everything. She left the house completely empty and also took their dog. He was just left very stunned because he didn't see this coming, and he was like completely devastated. So again, this is his side of the story, his thing. Not even sure if it's truth, but I do remember him saying that to me. He also, another thing that I remember is that he didn't really talk about his parents. He did tell me he was adopted by an older couple, and he just, like, they were good parents, but he just never talked about them. He never talked to them. I would call my mom like every day. We have a great relationship, but he was just much more reserved. He never really, when I asked him more, he just didn't really want to talk about it, so I kind of left it at that. This is him. This is us celebrating New Year's with a bunch of my friends and family, and this is me right here, and that's him, which is crazy. He also has been to my family home. That's him right there. This is me and my family members. But it's honestly shocking, and I'm grateful that the Lord protected me from moving forward in that relationship. The reason why it ended was I honestly wasn't feeling it. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but he was just kind of boring. And he was very much like kind of surface level. There was no, like, I couldn't go deep with him. And yeah, that's why I couldn't form like a deep connection with him because of that. Like, I think he had a wall up where he just like could not go deep with like any conversations really. So that's why it ended. And I moved up north, and the long distance thing didn't work out either. I'm praying for Monique and the Tepe family and their children. But I don't know, I'm shocked. Also, guy aged like a banana, so don't judge me.
According to her, and she seems like a very intelligent, witty, funny, smart woman, she says McKee put up walls. She met him, they were going through some doctor program together. I don't see any reason for her to lie about this. I don't see a reason for her to lie about this. And it was True Crime Mama who broke the news over there on Facebook. So I've been on Facebook quite a bit. Find me over there too, because YouTube had taken down one of my videos, the one when McKee got arrested. And I made this big video and was talking about his condo and all these things. And YouTube took it down. Bless God, they just put it back up today, because I went through and blurred so much and they were still like, no, we're leaving it down. And then lo and behold, today they put it back up again. I'm like, thank you, Lord. But anyway, I mean, it takes work, so it's discouraging when a video gets taken down. But find me on Facebook too, because I can update you so much faster about all these different cases. But the woman said McKee wouldn't go deep in conversations. I understand people like that who, when you want to go deep and talk about whatever, deep things, politics, beliefs, philosophy, whatever it is, life, flowers, artist, I don't know, anything. And a person is just like so shallow. She said he put up walls. He put up walls. He must have put up emotional walls. Didn't open up that side of himself. She said he was kind of boring. She did corroborate what we've heard, that Monique left him one day and he didn't expect it at all. He was devastated. Allegedly, this is after they were married, that really short-lived marriage. They were in Roanoke, Virginia, and she just took off one day with their dog, and I was thinking this is the best way she could have done it. For domestic violence victims, and I believe she was, we don't have the hard evidence yet. We have rumors of horrible treatment, but I'm believing she was. Because technically, let's be frank, you're in love with your college sweetheart, you go marry him, you move to another city with him. Generally, you're not going to just leave the situation 7 months into the marriage. That's when they separated, when she left, 7 months into it. You're not going to necessarily just leave because, oh, I miss home, or oh, I don't know anyone down here in Virginia. Generally, it takes a drastic action where you're afraid, where you've seen something in that person and you're like, I got to get out of here. I'm not telling him anything. That action speaks to a desperation of saving your life. You are trying to get the hell out of Dodge to save your life. So in my mind, she did it the right way. They tell DV victims, they advise them, over time, counselors have learned, don't confront him. Don't wait for him to get home like, I'm leaving and let me tell you another thing. No, that's the point where things can really go wrong. No confrontation, just save up, plan, and disappear. It is not Monique's fault that McKee held a grudge and wouldn't let her go. I mean, she made it obvious that she had moved on. She owed him nothing. She didn't want him anymore. They didn't have any children together. They really didn't own property together. She bought her own engagement ring and her wedding ring. They separated the cars. We went through the divorce paperwork. Nobody owed each other support. It should have been a clean break. Okay, but I get why he came home to her in the worst way possible. Now, it's not right. I'm not justifying anything this man has done. I'm trying to understand it. McKee must have viewed Monique as his home, his touchstone. Now, did you see that video of Monique leading the crowd, singing happy birthday to a young Mike McKee at OSU?
Happy birthday, Michael.
She's like leading the crowd, like this is him and everything. They probably really were deeply in love as college sweethearts, like their friend told People recently, saying McKee would continue to ask their mutual friends over the years about Monique in order to, keep up with her whereabouts. And I was thinking you can't blame those friends if they thought, they ran into McKee and maybe they believed he was innocently asking about her well-being. Maybe they all went to OSU together, hung out. Maybe they said to him, oh, yeah, Monique, she's married to that great dentist, Spencer, now. They have 2 kids. They're living right down there by OSU. A happy, wonderful life. Maybe they thought McKee had moved on and was living a successful, wonderful life, and he was just asking after his ex. No harm, no foul. But maybe inadvertently they were giving him information that he would later use to harm her and Spencer. And to me, you can't blame Monique and Spencer for still living their lives out loud in a matter of words. I do not know how much social media presence they had. I haven't found like a ton of Instagram photos and Facebook photos and all these photos of, Spencer and Monique yucking it up over the years. I don't know if they had a big presence online. Maybe they did hold back quite a bit. And I kept thinking this morning, I really hope their brother-in-law, Rob Misla, in no way blames any part of himself for documenting their wedding. It's a positive thing. Just think 20 years from now, the Tepe children will be able to watch their mom and dad, hear their voices. They can laugh at Monique telling Spencer she finally found her lobster, and then they'll go check out that iconic Friends episode, the one with the prom video. Season 2, episode 14, that's when Phoebe is telling Rachel that Ross is her lobster. Phoebe goes on to explain the lobsters mate for life and they're holding claws and they're like, oh, Ross and Rachel, you guys are destined to, be together after they watch this prom video where Ross is talking about his true feelings for Rachel. So, it's the Friends generation or watching the Friends reruns or whatever. In Monique's birthday photo, I noticed where it was like the one where Monique turns 30. So they were obviously fans of Friends. It informed their lives, and I thought that would be cute. The kids have these memories they wouldn't otherwise have if not for that wedding video. And we can't turn and blame the victims for some alleged ex-husband psychopath pining away for his ex-wife nearly a decade after they were divorced. Well-adjusted people can realize there's plenty of fish in the sea. They catch the hint. They know when a relationship is really over and they can move on. Okay, but this is why I think McKee turned his wrath to Monique. We're learning more. According to McKee's ex-girlfriend, McKee was indeed adopted by this older, kind couple. However, it seems like he was estranged from them for whatever reason. He kind of rejected them. I don't know why. According to the ex-girlfriend, she would speak to her own parents all the time, but McKee didn't speak to his parents. He didn't keep in touch frequently. So I was thinking, okay, if McKee grew up with those parents in Zanesville, and I've pulled like a lot of his traffic ticket records and all that over the years and stuff, and even property, it's like this couple must have given property to McKee. They must have been pretty kind to him, I guess. I don't know. I haven't looked that deeply into it. I don't really want to say their names because, I don't really want to say that elderly couple's names, but if he grew up in Zanesville, which is about like an hour's drive east of Columbus, what was McKee doing in the Columbus area around Christmas time if he wasn't hanging out with family? Did McKee drive to the Ohio area? At first I was thinking maybe he was hanging out with his parents for Christmas or something, but then I hear he's estranged from them. I don't know, does he see him during Christmas time? But if he doesn't, I was thinking he was going home to something familiar. He was looking for his touchstone. Now, Holidays are lonely times when people might reach out for something that's familiar. And I thought about my own ex-husband. Years after my divorce was finalized in like 1994, he did reach out a few times. So once I remember, he found me somewhere online and commented that, "Oh, you took your current husband's last name. That's because I never took his last name." Now, again, I'm in no way comparing myself to the plight of victims of horrific crimes like Monique and Spencer. But I thought of this when I was reading through Monique's divorce papers, and I saw she never officially took McKee's last name either. I mean, there was no time and probably no desire to take McKee's last name like she did ultimately take Spencer's last name. Monique separated from McKee 7 months after they married. She probably didn't want to take his last name. Maybe something inside her was like, this isn't going to last. And with me, years later, it was like 2001, my ex called my elderly father in Chicago attempting to get my phone number where I lived in California. And my dad refused to give it to him, thank God. But my ex had just lost his parent, so I know he was reaching out probably for some kind of touchstone. And at that point, though, we had been divorced like nearly 7 years. And then, just to tell you where my point of view is coming from, finally, like 20 or more years after our divorce, I got a Facebook message from my ex. It said, "I'm sorry for everything." I showed that message to my husband because it kind of creeped me out and I didn't respond. I just thought to myself, okay, thanks and Godspeed. It's been more than 20 years. We don't have any kids together. We don't need to ever speak again. Now, I don't harbor any ill will towards any ex. I'm the type of person like, God bless, go live your life. But I wish McKee could have figured out how to do that with his life. McKee obviously didn't lean on the Lord, lean on the rock that is God. He apparently still thought Monique owed him something. Maybe he saw his face in Spencer's face. He wanted to replace his face with Spencer's face, like, you're living my life. We should be married. I should be with Monique. We should have these 2 kids. The hubbub and the scuttlebutt going around line says McKee still thought of Monique as his wife even after she left him. I don't know for how long he thought that. I was thinking McKee should have studied more if he's misinterpreting any Bible quotes like Luke 16:18. It says, anyone who divorces his wife and marries another woman commits adultery. And the man who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Now, if you just pluck that out without looking at the whole canon of the Bible, you got to study the whole word to show yourself approved, then it might look like it's biblical to say, she should be my wife and my wife the whole time, and no matter what I do to her, she's still my wife and she should submit and stay there forever. The Bible does not say that. That's not the tone and color of what marriage should be. It's like, husband, love your wives, as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. A lot of people don't quote that. They always quote the wives submit part without quoting the other end of everything Jesus said, Now, the Bible does explicitly allow for divorce in certain instances, adultery, sexual immorality, cheating. Jesus said this. Even if they're abandoned by an unbelieving spouse, according to 1 Corinthians 7:15. And even though abuse is not out and out listed, it is considered in modern interpretations as, that's grounds for divorce too, because it's violating the covenant of marriage. It's a breach of love and safety and trust and everything you expect in a marriage. And it allows for the victim to get away, to divorce, to separate for their own protection. My questions are, did McKee mistreat Monique while they were married? The gossip going around claims that might be the case. And even if she never necessarily brought charges against him, many women do not. Let me tell you, I don't know if I've ever called the police on an ex or anyone. Now that I'm thinking about it, you can be so mistreated. I remember going home to my mom, my hand hurting. Oh my goodness, I just put it under the pillow and cried. And situations where you don't call the police, I just didn't. I don't know. Whether it's a fear of what could go wrong, so many reasons why. Not that I'm advocating not calling the police, let me tell you, but I'm just saying what I did in my younger years. So McKee should ask himself, did he ever cheat on Monique? Did he truly treat her kindly as a wife? As the vows he took standing up there, love, honor, obey, trust, whatever they say these days. Or was he under the mistaken belief of, okay, Once you marry me, that's it. We're always married. You're always my wife. And it's not even like the divorce paperwork reveals any reasons for a grudge, taking tons of his money unfairly, or alimony or palimony, or they didn't have any kids, so no child support. They were both young, starting out new, making only about $50,000 each per year. And even if she had won some kind of big settlement, let's say if he were rich back then, that wouldn't give him the rights to harm her or not let her go. They didn't have children. And if Monique didn't want to have children with McKee, that's her choice as well. And thank the Lord she didn't, because look what kind of man he turned out to be. What kind of dad would he have turned out to be if it's true that he did what's being alleged? So all bets are off, and I hope the victim blaming against Monique and Spencer stops. I don't like certain comments I'm seeing already blaming the victims. A few people are hinting that Monique was some kind of gold digger because, she married a doctor, and then she married a dentist. Or I see, they should have stayed offline. And I always think that's not fair. Heck, I make my living online. I was thinking, should all our God-given talents for researching, video editing, filming, writing, whatever, go to waste if God is saying yes? But then, you're supposed to listen to the voice of fear from your ex from years ago, years on end. Should Monique have allowed McKee to continue to dictate her life with fear year after year after year? That would have been like he's still controlling her. And that's what the friend told people, that, I don't know, maybe like McKee kind of wore a mask or whatever. And a lot of people have commented this, like, the day I got married, that's when my mate changed. The mask dropped, like, I got you now. So what did she know? What did she experience with him? And after leaving him, of course, we should try and live our lives safely and smartly. But I always ask, what part of my story do I own? I always wonder that as a writer, as a creative, as a filmmaker, whatever I am. People are always like, hush, hush, keep it, to yourself, keep it in the film, don't talk about that. And that's why I tend not to talk about a lot of this stuff, for different reasons. But I always ask, what part of my experiences do I own? Do I have the right to speak about? With people telling, Monique should have been hush-hush. She shouldn't have said this in her vows. She should have known he was watching. It's just, to me, a bunch of victim blaming. Of course, we practice situational awareness. We lock our doors. We try and live safe lives. But what will truly stop a maniac if he is intent on harming them? Obviously, like McKee allegedly was intent on harming Spencer and Monique. If you're going to drive freaking 7 hours there and 7 hours back and stay in Columbus for Lord knows how long, that time could have been invested in something so much better. It reminds me of that astronaut who drove in a diaper all those hours so she wouldn't have to stop just to harm her ex or whoever he was messing around with. Remember that Texas case? There are some nut jobs out there. I'm sorry to say it. Some people don't like these words, but it's just true. Just move on to something more beneficial. If you're lonely, no matter what you are, turn to the rock. That's my whole point. He's the touchstone. People who look at other human beings as your touchstone, you will always be disappointed if that's where your world revolves around this one person. And if they're gone through divorce or breakup or death, then where are you going to be? That's what I wonder. What would have stopped this maniac intent on harming them? People still have to live their lives. I mean, Spencer still had to work. He had to make a living. He had to leave his home. He had to travel. Allegedly, he traveled so far because there was some kind of non-compete clause in whatever legal stuff he was going through. And to me, Monique should not have been forced to take on some kind of witness protection, kind of sleeping with the enemy life to avoid McKee. What should she have done? Changed her entire name and go live in Colorado in the mountains and dyed her hair blonde and tell everyone her name is Sally Witherspoon and get new documents. And where does it end? And she may not have expected McKee to ever take it this far. You cannot necessarily know what volatile people will do, how far they take it until they take it there. You never know if someone's desperate enough to kill for the first time until they do. And then, it's too late, to put these protective measures in place, at least for the victims. You can still for their families. And now we see why there was so much protectiveness around the rest of the family after Monique and Spencer were killed, because police must have said, oh no, who else will he come for next until we catch this guy? And you can't blame the victims. And I'm not saying you, I know the majority of you out there have sympathy. I'm just thinking of the people who are, Monday morning quarterbacking this thing. Hindsight is 2020 about all the things Monique and Spencer should have done differently to save their lives. You just don't know. You can't blame victims for not living their lives in a way that would have prevented such evil from visiting their doorsteps. So whether McKee started losing his mind and giving himself over to evil and letting it unravel due to this malpractice lawsuit or something else, how could Monique and Spencer know that? If they're not researching him and Googling him all the time to figure out what the heck is going on with him. I don't do that with my ex. So I'm like, if McKee had, whether he hacked into their locks or maybe slid open some basement window that had inadvertently been left open, or hopped that back gate and somehow got in, we won't know. Time will tell. Eventually. All we can do now is wait for justice and pray for the Tepe children and all their loved ones so hurt and impacted. And then let's leave you with one of my favorite quotes from Jesus in Matthew 10:28. He said, "Do not be afraid of those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul. Rather, be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell." Ooh, that gives me chills, but it also gives me comfort, because sometimes human beings, they think, oh, I got the ultimate revenge, Yeah, people can kill the body, but they cannot kill the soul. Your mind, your will, your emotions. So Monique and Spencer can live on through all these videos and photos and all the stories that family and friends can pass on to their children, and the skills. And Monique was reportedly such a great baker, and Dr. Spencer has such glowing reports. I read all these comments where people are like, he was my dentist, and oh my goodness. They will live on that way. Instead, be afraid of God, who can destroy both the soul and the body in hell. Human beings don't have that much power. So I suggest McKee get right with God so he won't be destroyed in hell. He better, as I always say, confess, tell the truth about what he did. Don't play these games about, when he gets back to Ohio, he will defend himself vigorously and enter his not guilty plea and blah, 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 whatever. All that crap can fly. If he went in that home and terrorized, can you imagine in the middle of the night waking up to see your ex there with some weapon? This part makes me get emotional, but I'm sure Monique and Spencer's mind immediately went to their children. Like, this animal, what the heck is he going to do to my children after he does this? And I hope it, if it were a fleeting thought or whatever, I can't even imagine the terror. I hope he wasn't there with them, Monique and Spencer, a long time, and terrorizing them, and terrorizing enough to think of. But anyway, we wait for justice. We just pray for justice, God's justice, to shine through. As always, thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for more.